trial of the king began on the 20th of January 1649 in Westminster Hall. The start of the trial set the scene for what would follow. After the proceedings were declared open, prosecutor John Cook rose to announce the indictment. Standing immediately to the right of the king, he began to speak, but had uttered only a few words when the king attempted to stop him by tapping him sharply on the shoulder with his cane and ordering him to hold. Cook ignored this and continued. This prompted the king to poke him a second time, with the king rising to speak. Cook continued ignoring him. Greatly angered, the king struck Cook across the shoulder so forcefully that the silver tip of his cane broke off and rolled down Cook's gown and clattered onto the floor between them. With nobody wanting to pick it up for him, the king stooped down and retrieved it himself. When it was eventually his turn to speak, the king refused to enter a plea, stating that the court had no jurisdiction over him as sovereign. This, he argued, was due to the fact that his own authority to rule had been given to him by God and by the traditions and laws of England when he was crowned. Furthermore, he believed that those trying to try him only had the justification of arms to legitimise them, which was contrary to the laws of the kingdom. As such, the king insisted that the trial was illegal, as no lawyer with sense would agree that a king could be impeached. As the law clearly stated, the king could do no wrong. He further demanded to know by who and by what authority he was being summoned to the court. The king argued that the ancient constitution of government by king, lords and commons meant that the commons could not simply try him, and so he refused to plead. The court, in continuance of their constitutional vandalism, argued that there was no such thing as sovereign immunity and that the king was an individual like any other. The court decided to proceed as if the king had pled guilty, ignoring normal legal practice which would have been to press him to justify himself. 30 witnesses were heard by the judges to give them a clearer understanding of the situation, though in what would be considered a violation of the law today, the king was not allowed to listen to their testimony and could not question them himself. The king was found guilty on the 27th of January 1649 and sentenced to death. His death warrant was signed by 59 commissioners, including 2 who had not even been present when the sentence had been declared. Charles spent his last few days with his most loyal subjects and what family was left to him in England. During one such meeting, he urged his son and daughter to remain loyal to the Protestant faith and to their brothers who were in France. On the 30th of January, Charles was taken to the banqueting house, the scene of so many large events of his life and reign. Before a large crowd, he gave one last speech defending himself and warning his people of the threat from both the army and the Rump Parliament. He also gave his famous last words where he said he was now departing from a corruptible crown to an incorruptible crown.